Hi everyone, happy Wednesday. I'm Susie Leachy. I'm a certified health coach specializing in women's reproductive health, and I help women naturally balance their hormones using nutrition and lifestyle. So last week I did a video on the phases of the menstrual cycle. So if you haven't checked that out, go ahead and do so. I think it'll be really helpful for a lot of women. And I know I mentioned in that video that I would do an upcoming video on how to actually track your cycle, and I promise I will still do that, but I'm not going to do it this week quite yet because I thought that the phases of the menstrual cycle really segue nicely into how to optimize your hormone levels during the two main phases. So again, I went into a lot more detail on the two main phases and kind of the four more detailed phases last week, so definitely go ahead and check that out if you have not done so already. So one way to optimize your hormone levels, apologize if you see my cat's tail, she's walking across. Every time I do videos I feel like she wants to join in. So one of the ways to optimize your hormone levels during the two main phases is through something called seed cycling. And this is something that I've done in the past, and I actually just recently started doing again. And you may have heard me talk about it before. I've also recommended it to clients. It's something that I feel like is a great tool and it can be really helpful. So if you have any questions as I go through, feel free to let me know. And if you see, my cat's behind the screen now, making it move. If you have any questions as I go through, feel free to let me know and I will answer them. And if you catch the replay and have questions, feel free to also just drop questions in the comments and I will get back to you. So what is seed cycling and why would you want to do it? So seed cycling is also sometimes referred to as seed rotation, and it's a way to balance female reproductive hormones no matter what stage of life you're in. So, a common misconception is that it's just for those women who are currently cycling, but it can actually also be used if you're postpartum and don't have a cycle yet, or if you're premenopausal or even postmenopausal. So it's really for all women at any stage in life. And why you'd want to do it? Well, when hormones are balanced, fertility is boosted if you're in your reproductive years, PMS can improve, symptoms such as acne improve, and many other hormonal symptoms that we might experience can improve, obviously when hormones are balanced, and one way to do that is through seed cycling. So I'll give a little bit of background, and again, I went through a lot more detail last week on phases of the menstrual cycle, but just to give a little bit of background before I get into it, there are two main phases of the menstrual cycle. So the first half is the follicular phase, and the second half is called the luteal phase. And in the follicular phase, estrogen is the dominant hormone, and in the luteal phase, which is after you ovulate, progesterone is the dominant hormone. So basically there are certain seeds that naturally increase your estrogen levels and certain seeds that naturally increase your progesterone levels. So in the follicular phase, we want to boost estrogen because estrogen is rising in this phase, which causes the uterine lining to thicken and your follicles to mature. So we can use two different seeds during this phase, flax seeds and pumpkin seeds, because they are phytoestrogens and they'll help your body produce more estrogen to support it in thickening the uterine lining and maturing your follicles. In the luteal phase, we want to boost progesterone. So progesterone is the hormone that is secreted after ovulation to prepare the uterus for a potential pregnancy. And the two seeds used in this phase are sunflower seeds and sesame seeds. And the reason that these two seeds work really well is that sunflower seeds are very high in vitamin E and sesame seeds are very high in zinc. And both of those nutrients, vitamin E and zinc, have been shown to boost progesterone production in the body. So those are the seeds to use, but I'll go into a little bit more detail about how to do this. So how much do you consume? What are some of the best practices? Well, usually the recommended dose is about 1 to 2 tablespoons per day, so of each seed. And I personally like to split it up, so similar to how you would spread out a dosage of a vitamin or a supplement or a medication, I just think it's best for absorption to split up your doses throughout the day. So maybe you do, half a tablespoon with your breakfast and half a tablespoon with your lunch if you're doing a tablespoon a day, something like that. And again, it would be half a tablespoon of each seed twice per day if you're doing 1 tablespoon, but again, you can go up to 2 tablespoons. It's also best to grind the seeds prior to consuming them for maximum absorption. Now, this is most important for the smaller seeds, so flax and sesame seeds. And flaxseed you can purchase ground or milled. That's what I usually do, but otherwise you can grind it up yourself. Sesame seeds I haven't seen sold ground, but you can, again, grind them up yourself. And the reason you'd want to do that is because the seeds are so small, if you don't grind them up first, they will likely just pass right through your digestive tracts without being absorbed. So then you don't really get the full benefit of it. And then for sunflower and pumpkin seeds, you can grind them up, but not as crucial as the smaller flax and sesame seeds. So if you don't grind them first, just make sure to chew them really well so that you actually can absorb them and get the benefits. Now, how do you consume these seeds? You can really do it any way you want. You can consume them in a shake or in some yogurt or oatmeal or in some nut butter. My favorite way is either yogurt or oatmeal. So usually I'll do my seeds, have them twice a day. So I'll put them in maybe some yogurt with breakfast and then a little bit of oatmeal later on the day, or vice versa, depending on what I feel like having that day. But that's the way I like to do it. You can, figure out your own way. Maybe you put it in soups, maybe you just put it in a dish that you're making, but just make sure, as I mentioned, to grind up those smaller seeds first. Organic and raw seeds are definitely the best. Or I would say raw would be the priority, and organic if you can find it and if you want to spend the money on it, but definitely get raw seeds. Don't get roasted and salted and all of that. If you have any questions or want brand recommendations or want to know what I use, I'd be happy to share that with you. So just let me know in the comments, and excuse me, I can share that with you. It's also best to store your seeds in the freezer. And that's because the oils in the seeds can degrade very quickly and oxidize quickly. So if you store them in the freezer, they'll just have a much longer shelf life. And you can consume them right out of the freezer. That's what I do personally. They're not gonna have, icicles on them or anything, or taste like they're frozen. It's just a good way to store them, and you can just eat them directly from the freezer. So, just some personal anecdotes. I used seed cycling when I was trying to regulate my cycle and boost fertility when I wanted to get pregnant, and that was one thing that really helped me a lot. I've also seen really great improvements in my clients' cycles and ability to get pregnant when using seed cycling. So it's something that I definitely recommend, and I've seen work. There is science behind it, and I've also seen it work in practice. So something I highly recommend. And currently, I know I mentioned earlier in the video that I just started seed cycling again, I guess about a month ago. And so I have an 8-month-old, and I'm still breastfeeding, and I do not have my cycle yet. I do not have my cycle back yet. That kind of varies a lot for many women. Some, even if they're breastfeeding, will get their cycle back right away. Others won't get it back until they fully wean. So there's a lot of variation, but yeah, I don't have my cycle back yet. And I also mentioned in a previous video that I've personally struggled with hypothalamic amenorrhea in the past, and I did a whole video on what is hypothalamic amenorrhea. It's called What is HA? So if you're interested, go ahead and check that out. But because I had that condition, my hypothalamus is a little bit more sensitive than other women, so it's likely that I won't get my period back until I fully wean. Actually, about 80% of women with a history of HA don't get their cycle back until they fully wean, they stop breastfeeding completely. So that's where I'm at right now. However, even though I don't have a cycle, I decided to incorporate seed cycling again to try to get my cycle, or try to get my hormones back on track faster and regulate my hormones a bit. And one of the reasons I did that is because I suffer from migraines and I started getting them more frequently, and a big trigger for me is when my hormones are kind of out of whack. So I started the seed cycling again, and so far I've really seen great improvements with it. So something I definitely recommend if you get hormonal headaches or migraines of any kind, but also other hormonal symptoms, it can really help. And so if you're like me and don't have a cycle, maybe you're postpartum, or maybe you're pre or post-menopausal, or maybe you have HA, you can still do seed cycling. So the best way to do it, since you don't have a cycle, you might not know what day one is necessarily, the best way to do it is using the phases of the moon. Now, I know that might sound a little out there, but trust me, this is scientifically based. So the way you would do it is you would count the new moon as day one. So that would be the start of your cycle. You would start with your follicular phase seeds, the flax and pumpkin. Then the full moon, that would be considered your day 14 or your ovulation. That's the day that you would start your luteal phase seeds, so you would start consuming the sunflower and sesame seeds on the full moon. So new moon, day one, that's your follicular phase start date, and then full moon, that's ovulation, that's when you start your luteal phase seeds. That's if you don't have a cycle. So again, there are a lot of benefits to seed cycling. It's something that I'm sorry for the interruption, I just got a phone call, so hopefully it didn't pause. But I've seen a lot of benefits of seed cycling in myself and in my clients, so it's something that I highly recommend. Again, if you have any questions about this, just let me know in the comments or send me a message and I'll be happy to get back to you. I also want to mention that I have a private Facebook group. It's called Hormone Balancing, Fertility, and Beyond. So if you're interested in this type of content and you're not already a member, I invite you to join us there. It's a great group of women and I share a lot of information about women's health there. So I'll post a link to that group in the comments if you'd like to request to join. And also, if you've liked this page and you want to continue seeing the content that I post, you can add Health Equilibrium by Susie Leachy in your newsfeed preferences under Prioritize Who to See First, and then that way you won't miss a post or a video. I also have a free guide on my website with my top 5 tips for hormonal health. So it's a great place to kind of get you started if you're working on balancing your hormones. And I will post the link to that as well. It's on the homepage of my site. You just put in your name and email and that will grant you access to that free guide. And if you want some support and someone to guide you in naturally balancing your hormones or learning more about your cycle tracking, which again, I will talk about more in an upcoming video, or preconception planning and fertility, or if you're already pregnant and you want to feel good and have the healthiest pregnancy and postpartum experience that you can, I do offer free consultations for those who might be interested in working with me. So I'm really passionate about helping other women understand their bodies better and getting their cycles and hormones healthy so that they can feel their best and overcome conditions such as PCOS and HA and boost fertility. I personally worked with a coach when I was struggling with fertility issues, and it was something that was extremely beneficial for me. And now my mission basically is to pay it forward and help other women in a similar manner. And currently I've also been working with a coach during the postpartum period. If you're interested in working with someone who works with new moms, I will definitely give you her name. I highly recommend her. But so I've worked with a coach in a couple different times in my life now, and it's been extremely helpful. I'm a very self-motivated person, so I can do the research and make changes on my own, but there's just something about having an outside perspective and someone to hold you accountable and provide you with, a different perspective that can be extremely beneficial. So I've had a lot of benefits from coaching in my life, and now I also love and am passionate about coaching other women. So if you're interested at all, I will put a link to sign up in the comments, or if you know anyone who might be interested in working with a coach such as myself, then you can direct them to this video or to the content that I post or my website. And lastly, if there is a topic or a question that you'd like me to cover in an upcoming video, please just let me know. I am more than happy to talk about whatever is on your mind or whatever you have questions about. So that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me, and have a great rest of your week.